Hey, welcome to this edition of the Take Back Your Joy podcast. My name is Jonathan Moore, and thank you so much for tuning in to this edition. I think I say this almost every episode, but in knowing what's about to happen on this episode, this is one that you're going to want to share, that you're going to want to send to people. And I've got two amazing women in the studio today that are going to share about grief. They're going to share about loved ones in their lives. And I don't know anybody that's unaffected by grief. So grab a cup of coffee, sit in a comfy chair, listen to us, watch us, whatever, and I know that you're gonna be blessed through their stories. One of the foundation scriptures of this podcast is a scripture in Revelation that says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, the blood of Jesus, and the word of our testimony. And I believe that healing comes from our stories. And so what you're going to hear today, I believe, is going to be strength, healing, encouragement, maybe a little bit of raw emotion, but that's okay. It's just part of being human and part of being alive. So I want to welcome to the studio Amanda Perry and Morgan Hickerson.
Hi.
So glad you guys are here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
We want to tell what your stories here in a minute about your loved one, but just a little bit about you, maybe who you're married to, your children, and so forth. So Morgan, why don't we just start with you and let people know who you are.
I am Morgan Hickerson. I'm a teacher at Joshua Ninth Grade Center. I'm married to Corey Hickerson. We have two kids together. One is Brighton, she's 12, and then our son is 7 years old, Channing. I also have a nephew that's Jackson that is like my child to me as well. That's pretty much it. I'm from Ennis, Texas, little Ennis, Texas, and I love living here.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. And Amanda?
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm also a teacher at the ninth grade campus. I teach English 1. I'm married to Luke Perry, not the one from 90210, though. But his name is Luke Perry. He gets that all the time. And we have 4 amazing kids. Our daughters, Rayleigh and Layla, are twins. And then we have our middle is Mason. He's 9. Rayleigh is 12. And Rhett, who is 4, about to turn 5. And Layla, of course, passed away, a week before her 7th birthday. So her age, unfortunately, is forever. So
Amanda, let's go and start with you. And I think we've got pictures of you and Luke and the family. And I think it probably was the third one in there. So there's your family right there. Uh-huh. And the ones you mentioned. I like the name Rhett. That one's a cool one.
Oh, yeah.
And then let's go, if you can point out anything if you want on that.
So Rhett, my youngest, who is 4, has been our little bundle of joy. He came at a time of immense grief. I think I told you when we found out about him, Layla was in the last bit of her battle with cancer.
So Taylor, if you don't mind, let's go to the ones with Layla and her twin.
So this is Layla on my right, with the white headband. That's Layla, and on her right is Rayleigh, her twin. And so she passed away from a rare form of brain cancer called diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma.
In 2020.
In 2020.
At the age of 7. Yes.
And she was still 6, but she was almost 7. And so the month before she passed, we found out we were pregnant with Rhett. And it was so confusing because I remember thinking, how am I going to grieve one and celebrate the birth of another? How am I going to do that? That's going to be so complicated. But, the Lord just has a way of, he knows what we need, and he knows exactly when we need it, and he knows exactly who and what to place in our lives at the exact right moment. And that was Rhett, and he's what we all needed. Every sibling, my husband, myself, my family, we needed that kid. He came into our world, and he just lit it all up. Because I remember thinking, Layla had this personality that was like, the best way I can describe it is just sparkle and sass. And she had this spark of life that you don't find in just anyone. And when she passed, I was like, that's going to be gone from our family now. And I don't know how to get it back because she brought so much to every day.
Yeah.
So much energy, so much life, so much fun, just so many giggles. She made everything just so much fun. And, but then Rhett came along, and lo and behold, he has the exact same personality.
Awesome.
So the Lord knew my heart. He knew that I was concerned because, my older two kids, Rayleigh and Mason, are very Rayleigh, she's fun to be around, but they're both a little bit stoic, Mason especially. And I needed something in their lives to bring them some excitement and some joy back, because they were both struggling, very much so. And they needed Rhett. I needed Rhett. So he came at a good time.
God knew what he was doing. And then Morgan, you've got your family here as well. And I think there's one of, that's your whole extended one.
Yes.
That was probably before your
Except our
littlest
little
one was
Channing,
born.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's
And
my
we're
whole
actually,
family.
Morgan, you're here to talk about your sister and your mom.
Yes. My sister's right there. That's her son, Jackson. My brother-in-law, Jason. My parents in the middle. My mom also passed away. And myself, my husband, and my daughter. We also had Channing come in about a year after my sister passed away. And the same thing that Amanda just said. It was.
I think there's one of all four of them with, when that's your mom and your sister who are
Yes,
both
my sister's
with
wedding
Jesus.
day. Yes.
And you're going to hear their story. And I think there's one with you and Corey and both of the kids. No?
I sent in too many pictures, didn't I?
Maybe I didn't get that one up there. So So once again, your mom and your sister there.
Beautiful ladies.
Oh, they're amazing. Is there one with Channing in there? No.
Maybe I'll look it up while
No, it's
you're
okay.
telling. But
No.
go ahead and
it's
tell
fine.
us what
But Channing was the same about. I got pregnant with Channing maybe a year after my sister passed away, and the same thing. I was just like, how am I going to bring this child into the world and have the right mindset when I'm struggling so much myself? And also, it was really hard for me to think about that he would never know my sister, that my sister would never meet him. I do believe that they did meet before, he was born. I have a strong opinion about that, but it was just weird. It was like my person is not going to meet my baby. And same thing with Channing. Channing, if you know Channing, you know that he is extremely special. My mom always said everyone should live like Channing. He's just happy. He's hilarious. I mean, every day he just brings all of us so much joy. Obviously, Jackson and Brighton did as well, but he just lights all of us up when we're in such a dark place. So
did Channing come through I think we got
is.
Channing. There's the little guy, and he was at convocation this year, and he and Corey had a part to play that was amazing.
Yes,
hilarious.
He ate that up. He was so excited to wear cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. But
it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember right before school started, he was running around the hallways with my daughter and one of our friends' other daughters. And he's just so much fun.
He really is.
He's just a blast.
Yeah. Is there a connection, and Morgan, I'll ask you, is there a connection between Channing and just the joys in your life now and your mom, your sister, your grandfather, that they had a love of life that you now see living on?
Absolutely. My sister just loved kids in general, and I just know she'd just been obsessed with him. My mom was a very free spirit like Channing is, so I see that in him. My mom's spirit in him as well, but he just has brought us so much joy and happiness.
So the first one to pass away was your sister. Am I right on that?
Yes. Well, before that, my grandfather passed away, my mom's dad, in 2010. I hope I don't get all these years wrong because so much went on.
Yep.
2010, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He only lived 5 months. It was really quick. During those 5 months, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 27. Her life was just really getting started. She was a director at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Corsicana, Texas. She had really brought up the program. It went from just a Monday, Wednesday, Friday program to a full week. I mean, the enrollment rate went up. She just loved her job. She loved her kids. And then my husband and I had 2 miscarriages in between that time. Then we were blessed with our daughter, Brighton. My sister passed away 5 years after she was diagnosed. And then just, I guess, 3 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the same disease that my grandpa had. And hers is still just so new. It's just was a few weeks ago. So she passed away the day after her birthday, which is my nephew's birthday. So that was really hard. On August 28th, she passed away, and her birthday is August 27th.
And then you experienced a couple more miscarriages.
Yes, I did. Just so much just slammed me right in a period of time. So before my mom passed away, I had 3 more miscarriages. So I've had 5 in total. And that was crazy. Like people just don't talk about it until it happens. And then you finally hear other people. And if you've had a miscarriage, you wonder, like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Like, what did I do? And there's nothing you did wrong. They're more common than anyone thinks because nobody really wants to talk about them. So I do like to get that out there, and hopefully people won't feel any like regret or not regret, like guilt if they have a miscarriage, so that they can talk about it with others.
Well, I think it's just as real grief as somebody that you know was in the flesh in front of you.
Right.
So it's hard to deal with. And Amanda, and I want you guys to kind of bounce off this together because I think both of your stories are closely knit together. But Layla was just a few years diagnosed when she passed away. And tell the story, if you don't mind, on the day that she passed away and what that was like and what led you guys up to that point. And Morgan, I want you to be thinking about when Megan, what you stuck with her through thick and thin. And so I think that's part of it, is that how close you guys were to their passings and how it affected you.
So Layla started having her eye cross in. And so actually her stepmom caught it. I think it was in like January of 2018. Might have been December of 2017. Can't remember, but it was sometime in that time frame. And so then I started, when you see your kid every day, sometimes little subtle changes you don't notice.
Yeah.
And then someone will come up that doesn't see them as often or every day, and they're like, "Hey, did you notice?" So she was like, "Hey, I've been noticing Layla's eye sometimes will kind of cross in." So I made her an appointment with an ophthalmologist in Fort Worth. And so we went in. I think it was like middle to end of January. I'm not sure.
She's about 4 at this point.
She was 4, yes. So we go to the ophthalmologist, and we go in there, and he's looking at her eyes. He only spent, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes talking to us and looking at her. And then he left for a minute, and then he came back in, and he said, "I'm going to send y'all." This was actually February. He said, I'm gonna send y'all to Cook Children's to get an MRI. He said, "I feel like this might be something we can correct. Maybe it's just because she had a fall." And he was like, "Maybe this is something we can correct. Maybe it's just a bruised nerve or whatever," he said. "But I feel like we need to go ahead and get an MRI." Looking back, I think he knew what was going on, but he couldn't tell us because he couldn't diagnose. So he sent us to MRI. So we're sitting in the waiting room at Cook's. And we're thinking, this is just for her eyes. It'll be fine, nothing serious. Well, a nurse comes in to get us before the MRI is even over. And she's like, "We need you to come back in here." And we're like, "Is she, awake yet?" She's like, "No, she's still in the MRI. We'll bring her back to you as soon as we can if you'll just follow me." And I could just tell from her facial expression.
It was serious.
It was serious.
You just know that look, you're just like.
Yes. And someone had already come out and told us, "We're going to refer you to the second floor to Dr. What was his name? Can't think of his name at the moment. But she told us his name. And so I Googled him, and it said, oncology. Not just any oncology. It was like specifically for neurological brain cancer. And so I'm like shaking. I'm freaking out, and my mom's like, "Hold on, we don't know everything yet. This lady comes out, and I can just tell." And I'm like, "Can you tell us anything?" She's like, "I'm so sorry. I cannot. I can't tell you." And so she took us back to this room, and there was a table like this in there, and they sat us down, and in comes a chaplain and like 2 or 3 other hospital workers. And at this point, we still haven't been told anything. But when a chaplain comes in, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? They still didn't tell us anything, but I'm already in tears. I'm bawling. This whole thing is just, I don't even know how to make sense of it. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay. I'm talking myself down. Cancer. We're in 2018. It's treatable. We can do this. Like, it's something we can do surgery. There's something we can do. So I'm trying to talk myself down in my head, but I'm just bawling and I'm trying to get a hold of myself because they're bringing her back, and they put her in a room and they take us in there, and she's slowly waking up from sedation. And so they take us from there to this doctor's office, and we go into another room, and they have her wait out in the lobby with my mother. And then me and her dad go into this conference room with a longer table, and we sit down, and here comes a staff of probably 15 people filing in and sitting all around. And then here comes this man with a manila folder. I guess it was the doctor, and he sits down at the head of the table, and he's just very cut and dry. He just opens the folder, slides it to us, and says, Layla has DIPG. She has 4 to 6 months to live. It's incurable, inoperable. There's currently no form of treatment. Boom. Like, everything blew up. That was literally, it was very cold. It felt very cold, but I know, like, as a doctor, I understand where he's coming from. He had to just say it. He had to be cold about it. There's no way to sugarcoat that. And so, long story short, we're asking him about clinical trials. What can we do? And he's like, honestly, they're not going to help. We don't offer one here anymore for this particular type of cancer. My advice to you is just take her home and make her comfortable and enjoy what time you have left.
Wow.
So we take this information home with us, and we both had her dad and I are divorced. And so we both had different ways of looking at this. He was looking at it as I'm going into full research mode, and he's looking up all the clinical trials, all the things. And I was looking at it like, well, if they said it's not going to do any good, I'd rather her not go through more pain. I would rather, just like the doctor said, make her comfortable and enjoy the time we have left. And looking back, I'm very grateful that he pushed, because if her dad hadn't have pushed for that, we wouldn't have had the 2 years we had. And so we wound up going to MD Anderson. We did 2 clinical trials, and the first one was pretty successful. We were able to have like a 6-month period of time where we like took her to Disneyland. We enjoyed our time. It was good. She even went back to school, and then her symptoms started coming back. We did more radiation, another clinical trial, and that one was not effective. And then about, I guess it was December of 2019, the progression of that brain tumor just took off. And she died in February of 2020, February 28th.
And Morgan, yours was similar.
27th, not 28th, sorry.
With Megan and probably your mom too, that just all of a sudden you're...
Yeah, I was explaining the other day that I had a good life. I had never really had anything significant go wrong in my life. And then whenever my grandpa, and then right after that, my sister, it was just like everything stops. It's just like you want to be like, why me? You get angry. And then I'll just never forget. I think you think you're invincible, or we think we're invincible. And we see other people go through these tragic stories, and we're like, we feel for them, but then it hits you. And when you get those words, or you have that oncologist come in, and just that title alone is just like, oh my gosh, like how? You just don't get it. And I still don't, obviously. But when I was saying the other day, when you're at the front row of that funeral, you just feel so much emotion, so much, everything just hits you like a wave, and it's just hard. Megan lived 5 years with her diagnosis and fought so hard. She did many different clinical trials. I don't even know how many she did. And she also went to MD Anderson. She got second opinions, and it came back stage 4. my mom was actually, I would say most of my family was in major denial about her stage 4 diagnosis. My mom, like if she told people about it, she would always say stage 3. And even my sister and I said, Mom's telling everyone that you're stage 3. And so my sister called her out one day. She's like, Mom, you go to every appointment with me. You know that I'm stage 4. And it was just like, she didn't want to believe it. You know, you never do. You don't want to.
It's a hard thing to accept.
So, I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. And then when she passed away, I went into a very, very dark place.
You stayed with her in the hospital, and I'm sure you guys did as well with Layla, but you made a little cot right there in the hospital room.
My whole family did. I don't know if this is very normal or not, but we had a friend that brought a blow-up mattress, and I had a feeling, Megan and I had like a sixth sense about each other, and I had a feeling that it was going to happen that evening. And everybody, we had so many visitors and just so many wonderful people. And my dad was leaving, and he was going to be driving to Ennis. And I was like, hey, I don't think you need to go tonight. He was like, you think that she's going to pass? And I was like, I do. So it was my mom, my dad, my brother-in-law, and my nephew. We were all in her hospital room. And my nephew was asleep on the blow-up mattress, and my mom was to the left of her. My brother-in-law was to the right, and my dad was asleep in a chair for a minute. And she had gone into like a comatose state once they started the morphine, and she wasn't able to talk or open her eyes or anything like that. And then all of a sudden around 2 a.m., she just like completely lifted herself off her bed and just kept saying that she had to go. She was trying to pull at her IVs, pull at her gown. This is something that I was telling y'all the other day that not many people know, because it just sounds so crazy. And if I didn't have my other witnesses, my dad and Jason, my brother-in-law, then I probably would never tell anyone, because it was just so unreal. But
and you even at that point had a moment of hope.
I did. I said, hi. And now I know that they call it the last surge, or the surge after. Not everyone goes through it, but I had some hospice nurses come in to talk to my students, and I found out that it's very common. Not everyone does it. My mom definitely did not do anything like that. Hers was a totally different experience. But it took my mom, my dad, and my brother-in-law to all hold her down, because she was so adamant that she had to go, while I ran to the nurse's station, and they came back to give her something to relax her. She did it again around 4 a.m. And I told her, it's okay. We got Jackson, you can go.
Jackson's her son.
Yes. And then, so she laid her head back, and then she looked up at the ceiling, and she's like, and she just kept looking sideways. And when she looked to the right, that's when she passed away. And some of them were still in denial after I knew that she had already gone. So that was, if anyone, a lot of people say, like, don't you get angry with God for what's happened to you? Or no. After that experience, like, there's no one that could say anything to make me mad at God. I saw what could happen. That experience was something that, it was a worse time, but also a time that gets me through, I think, a lot of dark moments and stuff like that.
There are times that I wouldn't say I've gotten mad at God. I've questioned.
Yeah. How do you not?
Yeah, I've questioned. There was this time, probably 6-7 months after she passed away. Well, Rhett was a newborn, so I was at home with him, and I was watching our service online that Sunday morning, and they were doing testimonies, and one man got up there and gave the testimony of his son being healed. They thought that he had, I don't remember what type of cancer, So I think it might have been a brain tumor of some sort. But anyway, they were afraid. They'd gone to the doctor. The doctor pretty much told them. And then his son, when they went back for the next MRI, was just miraculously healed. And I remember texting my pastor, and I was like, I don't understand why his kid and not mine. That was really, really tough. Really, really tough. And so you put a question for us about what's a song that got you through, or a verse, you know. And during that time, there was a song called Thy Will Be Done, or Thy Will by Hillary Scott. I don't know if you're familiar.
I think so.
And we played it at Layla's funeral, but that was one I really leaned on, because it's essentially saying, like, I don't have to have all the answers to trust your sovereign will. I know that you're sovereign. I know that you have a plan, not just for my life, but for hers.
Yeah.
The life that she lived, she was able to reach people in Norway and Sweden. Like, there were people praying for her all over the world. We had a Facebook account, and we would get all this, like, just people in random countries and random places. We're praying for you guys. We love to watch Layla's videos. She's such a warrior. She's got such faith, and she did. I mean, she was, oh my goodness, I'm trying not to cry. She would be in the back seat, and we would be on our way somewhere, and I'd be listening to worship music, and she would just lift her hands in her car seat.
Awesome.
And just worship. And I'm like, you can't tell me that a child that young does not understand the presence of the Lord and what that means. And she just had this joy, no matter what she faced, no matter what pain she was in, no matter what happened. She would always lift her hands and worship. And she would pray, and she would talk to the Lord. And so, yes, I have questioned, you know, she was so faithful, Lord. She believed in her miracle, and I did too, and it didn't happen. So why that kid and not mine?
Right.
But it's not about me. It's not even about her. None of this on this earth is about any of us. And what happens here is all about the Lord and his will and his plan for all of us. And that supersedes what I want.
Layla had a similar experience to Megan's. Can you tell about that when she said she's...
Yes. Oh, gosh. So I'll never forget this. There was one morning I was getting her ready for the day because her cancer had progressed to the point where she could no longer move her limbs. She couldn't take herself to the restroom. She couldn't walk. She could barely speak at this point because this cancer, this monster, if you ever... you can Google it if you want to, but it's like, it looks almost like an octopus. It has like tentacles, and eventually it just squeezes the brainstem. And so all of her physical faculties went one at a time. And so at this point, she could not move. She could barely speak. And we had to like put her food in a blender just to feed her. And then eventually she couldn't swallow that. And we could only give her water. And then water was too difficult to drink. And then at that point, it was just waiting. And so she's laying there, and I'm putting on her clothes for the day. And I'm off in La La Land. I'm not really talking to her. I normally would talk to her and kind of play with her while I'm getting her dressed. But I don't know, that day I was just very distracted. And it was probably one of those days where I'm just kind of down, you know, not understanding what's going on, you know. And she starts giggling out of nowhere. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I was like, what are you giggling at? You know, what are you laughing at? She said, and of course she couldn't speak very well, but she could at least I could understand her, but it was hard to understand sometimes. And she said, my angel. I said, oh, you have an angel. Because I noticed her eyes were like looking up above my head and like darting around the room at the ceiling. And she was giggling at it. And I was like, oh, you have an angel? And she said, yeah. I said, what's your angel's name? And she said, Jonah. And I said, oh, Jonah's up there. I said, what does Jonah say to you? What does he do? And she said, he sings to me. Awesome. And so I was telling you the other day, years later, like 5 years later, I'm studying in the book of Matthew. And
this is so good what you're about to share.
I come to the Matthew 18, and it essentially says, I'll just turn.
Do you have it? Read it. It's powerful.
Yeah, it's, oh gosh, it was Matthew 18.
10.
I forgot
Yeah,
is it 10?
18:10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
18:10. It says, oh, sorry, this is King James Version, guys. It says, take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones.
And Jesus talking here.
This is Jesus.
Yeah.
This is red letter. For I say to you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father, which is in heaven. So I read that. I just started bawling. I was like, she wasn't hallucinating. There's scripture for that right here. It says every child pretty much is assigned an angel, and that angel has forever the face of the Lord. Like that angel can go on behalf of that child straight to the throne of the Lord. Mm. And that day just brought me so much peace and comfort, because in her worst moments, her very last days, she had her angel there to comfort her when I couldn't. When I couldn't be comforted and I couldn't comfort her, the Lord sent her angel.
We talked about this, about when you lose somebody. Of course, my mom passed away probably about the same, close to yours, that the world just seems to go on. And so Morgan, I mean, I know that you specifically felt that when when you were leaving the hospital with Megan, that here is, you just lost somebody so important, and you walk out into a world that it doesn't seem like they know that somebody precious has left the world.
I won't forget that. When, she had the funeral home and already come to get her, and I go to grab her pillow that I had taken to the hospital just to make her feel more comfortable, and her purse. And I started walking out the door, and I was like, as soon as, we walk out of this hospital, Megan will not be here with us anymore. Like, my life takes a whole nother chapter. Like, how do I possibly keep going? One thing that got me through a lot, we had a huge support system, and I know you said that you did too. That was amazing. But once again, all of them eventually, and they brought us food, they just came to hang out with us. So we always were surrounded with somebody, even during their diagnosis. But after they all go home, that's something I always try to warn people that are going through this situation. They eventually go home, and it might be, a smaller circle in like a week, and then it just keeps dwindling down until it's just you and your family, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's like another just, shock to the system whenever everyone else goes home.
And you went into a dark time where you didn't even want to get out of bed. And
we all dealt with it differently. For some reason, I feel like I dealt with my sister's loss the worst. I was extremely depressed, and I had a young daughter, and she also had a son that was like my own, or is like my own. And I still have guilt for wanting to just be alone and lay in bed, because I just didn't feel like I could move on without her. We were so close. My mom, all three of us we were each other's people. We were together almost every day. If not, we talked to each other an obnoxious amount of times a day. And so it's just so weird. Finally, I talked about this at my mom's funeral. A week after she passed away, my mom and grandma walked into my house, helped themselves into my house, and I was, just in a ball, laying in my bed, and they just pulled the comforter off, and my mom said, "Get up." She's a very bossy woman. She said, "Get up. There's a little boy that went back to school today, and he's waiting to have lunch with you. You're going to show up." And I was like, "Mom, I don't feel like, I don't want to get dressed, this and that. And I don't want to see all the people that I know that know what we're going through at school." And she laid next to me, and I can still just see her like holding herself up by her head. And she said, "Mo, at this time we can either sink or swim, and we're going to swim."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." And then she just kept singing, "Just keep swimming, just keep swimming," like Finding Nemo. And that was like my first step I can't say I kept going after that. I went back and forth numerous times. I obviously still have days that it just hits you and you're just like, or sometimes I'll see other sisters or families and they're doing things. And I hate to say this, but I can kind of get kind of jealous, especially around Christmas time, seeing everybody else, celebrating together and them all doing these things. Well, our holidays are just so different now, especially now that my mom's gone. The two of them were the ones that brought all the holiday spirit. I just kind of rode with it and showed up. And so I've tried to continue those things, but it's just so different now. So I have to remind myself that I have those memories, but it's hard to know that I won't be 50 and being able to hang out with, my sister, or they won't be at some special events for my kids. Those are the times that the anger does come back. But then you think about those moments that you had with them, and I think those moments of special memories are what keeps you going. And just another thing my mom said before she passed away, this is maybe 2 days before she passed away, she said, and she was barely talking, she said, "Are you jealous?" And I said, am I jealous that you're dying? And no, no, I'm not. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, that I get to see Megan. And I said, yes, I'm so jealous. Like, the thought of them two seeing each other and reuniting, that just brings me so much. And I know one day that they will be waiting and be like, where have you been? We've been waiting on you. My son, and we talked about the other day with kids, that's really hard. You don't know what to say to them. I still question if I've done it right or wrong. I just think you just kind of have to move with it. My son asks about my mom a lot. He'll look in the, clouds. Clouds are a big connection with him to my mom. And he'll just go on with these crazy stories. Like, you think her and Ma, my daughter called my sister Ma, and you think her and Ma, what do you think they're doing today? Do you think their house has a slide in it and has all the candy? And he'll just go on to these just crazy stories. But and I'm like, yes, honey, I think so. Whatever you think, yes.
Well, you referenced at the start of the show, and I actually marked it in my Bible to bring it up. So Hebrews 12, where it talks about, it says, "Wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin that does easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us." And so I love that you referenced that, and because I think about that cloud of witnesses, and I think about what you were referencing to is like she and my grandmother, because my grandmother, I forgot to mention earlier, the month after Layla was diagnosed, my grandmother suddenly passed away, and she's the only grandmother I've ever known. And so I think about that verse because my grandmother was an intercessor. The woman could pray like no one you could believe. And she lived such a wonderful life. She had such faith. And so when I think about that scripture, the clouds, about the great cloud of witnesses, and they're up there and they're cheering us on down here. Yeah. They have gotten their reward. They've gotten to put all that stuff that we still deal with, they've gotten to just shake all that off. And they got their spiritual bodies, and they're up there saying, "You've got this. You can do this. I did it. You can do it." And I think about that, and it's such inspiration for me when I read that scripture, because I'm like, they're cheering me on. They're up there. And so I try to tell my kids that they're cheering you on right now. Yeah. Tell Channing that, like, she's cheering you on. She's up there. She's cheering you on right now. And so that one brings a lot of comfort to me too.
Can you tell the story about Layla, the day she passed away, and just what you experienced with the kids that were at the house? And I think that's I know that when my mom was recent, that you just have that feeling. Does anybody know what has left this world? Because they're so precious to you. And so, can you tell about when Layla passed away that day?
Oh, yeah. So I started writing a book. I need to finish it. It's just mom 3, full-time job. It's just not coming very quickly. But I did write a chapter about that. I started the chapter.
Hey, if you need a co-author, I bet Morgan would co-author.
We could do it.
I would.
Totally. And so I remember it was the most peaceful passing I have ever seen.
She was at home.
She was at home. And so we were at my mother's house. We had been that year, dude. We had sold our house. We were building a new house on property that we had bought. So we were living in an RV. So my parents let us graciously move to their house, and they moved into the RV. And so we were in their bedroom, and we knew that it was getting close. Hospice nurse was saying, everyone needs to come in and say their goodbyes. And you mentioned earlier that you had a lot of people handled that differently. Mm-hmm. My mom was like, nope, I can't do it. And the hospice nurse kept talking to her. She's like, they need you to let them know that it's okay, that they can go. A lot of times they will hang on for days,
Right.
Days. So we all, took turns going in, and we would tell her how much we loved her. We'd tell her it's okay to let go. We'll be okay. Well, we'd all said our goodbyes, and she just wasn't letting go. She just wouldn't let go. And eventually the hospice nurse said, would you like for me to turn off the machines? And I just looked at her dad, and he kind of nodded, and she just had like a tube in her nose to just assist her with breathing. She wasn't on a she wasn't intubated or anything. It was just like so we went ahead and said, yeah, you can turn it off. And they turned off the machine, and it just got so quiet. And somebody had gone to get her twin, because the nurse said she's still holding on for someone. Mm. But my oldest daughter, Rayleigh, just couldn't. Sorry.
It's okay.
So they finally got her there. And she just walked over to her sister's bedside and put her hand on her hand. She didn't say anything. I think she actually did say, "Hi, Layla, I'm here." And she put her hand on her, and that was the moment she let go.
Wow.
It was when her twin got there. I'm sorry.
No, please don't.
Anyway, I just remember I didn't even realize that she had slipped away. I was down at her. I was kind of at her hip area, and I was laying on the bed next to her, and I was just holding her hand because other people were up by her head telling her goodbye and everything. And I was just holding her hand. I was just laying there, and I was praying silently to myself, and all of a sudden I heard her dad say she was just waiting on Rayleigh. I looked up, and I'd missed it. And I regret that moment so much. I didn't expect it when it happened. I mean, I knew it was coming, right. Obviously. Mm-hmm. She passed so quietly. And I wasn't expecting that. And all it took was her sister being there. And so anyway, I remember, once she took her last breath and everyone kind of left the room, we had a bunch of family, a bunch of friends. Everyone was there. I had my niece and nephew there. We had a couple of friends that brought their kids that were real close to her to say goodbye. And a lot of people don't want people around at a time like that, but we're the type of family that we're like, oh, we want everybody.
It helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want everybody there, and I want you to be in there praying for us. Mm-hmm. I specifically invited people from my church over because I knew they were intercessors. I knew what a hard time we were having, and I was like, I need y'all there. I don't know why, but
good distraction.
Yes, and they never came. Like, they just stayed in the living room. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I just need y'all there. I can't explain why, but the Lord put you specifically on my heart to be there. Mm-hmm. And so we had people in the living room, and we had our pastor, my pastor, and my mom's pastor, and my uncle, who is also a pastor. And we had some great men of God that were right in the hallway as she was passing. And I was just telling them, please pray, because I wasn't sure what to expect or what was going to happen, but it went so peacefully. So peacefully. Well, after she passed, everyone cleared out. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was just perfect weather. And the windows were not open, but the blinds were. And so the sunlight was coming in. And I remember looking at my child laying there. She looked more alive than she did when she was alive. It was a supernatural experience for me. I looked at her and she looked healthier than she had looked in 2 years.
Wow.
And I wasn't the only one who noticed it. Like my uncle came in, he was like, man, she looks like she's still alive. She looks, her color is beautiful. She looks like she's glowing. And I was like, that to me said everything about where she was at that moment. She was not with us anymore. She was in a place where there was no more pain, no more suffering. But I still didn't have my daughter. So even though that gave me some peace, it still didn't help my grief because I want her. I wanted her to be here and I wanted her to be whole with me. And so I'm looking at her and everyone has gone except for, I think my husband came in there and it was just quiet. There was just silence. And I was just looking at her and I was holding her and I could hear outside the birds chirping. I could hear all the kids playing outside. My mom had a swing in the backyard and they were all, like kids do. They were just laughing and giggling and they were running around and they were playing. And I could hear all these noises of life. And I remember, and I wrote it down in this chapter, I was like, how is it that my world just stopped, but everyone else's just kept spinning? Right. I don't get it. And don't they know what I just lost? Don't they know what just happened? How can they do this? It's not that I wasn't angry.
No.
By any means. But that was my thought process. Was in the middle of all that, I was like, everything just keep, I thought the world would stop for this. Mm-hmm. It didn't.
One of the things, and certainly with your situation, Morgan, because not only did you lose these family members, but you had miscarriages. Mm-hmm. And I think, Amanda, you said it well, is that you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. And how do you live when you've suffered so much loss or suffered a loss that was somebody so young? How do you go forward without fearing what's going to happen next?
That's what I was going to say. You try so hard not to live in fear. I do think there's some sort of like PTSD that comes when you go through so much trauma. Like I said, I didn't have anything bad really ever. I was very lucky. My childhood was great. And then bam. So it's hard not to live in fear. But we were saying the other day that little things don't get to us anymore. I used to get, mad about the littlest things or worked up about little things. And now it's just something else. It's just a bump in the road. Like, were you saying the other day, one of your kids fell and you're like, get up. Like, you're okay.
Yeah,
I'm the exact
like,
same way.
And they're like running to his aid and they're looking at me like, why aren't you going? I'm like, he's fine.
I'm the same way.
He's good.
My neighbors always go get him a Band-Aid or a ice pack. And I'm like, he does not need that. He is okay. And so you just learn to not take things for granted, I guess you could say. But you definitely do have a lot of fear still, like what else can happen, You still want to believe that you're invincible, even though you've already been through so much. But yeah.
It's like you feel like there's a target on your back. And then when the attacks stop coming, you're like, wait a minute.
I know.
I'm supposed to.
This is the calm before the storm. Like what's coming next?
I'm not supposed to be living in peace right now. Something else is going to happen. It has to. It's bound to happen. I can't. No, this is not normal for me. You go through years of one thing right after the other, and then suddenly nothing, and you're back to normal, and you're like, okay, what gives? What's next? And like I talked to you on Saturday about, how when my son was born, I just was convinced there was something wrong with him. And when he had jaundice and they had to bring him like a little incubator thing inside our home, and they delivered it that day. And I just sat in that room and I just cried. It was not a big deal. It was just jaundice. He just had to sit under lights, but it was coming off the heels of all this cancer journey. And I just sat there and bawled. I was like, I thought we were done with this. I thought we were done with all the medical equipment.
Yeah.
I thought we were done with all of the office visits Oh, it was just, yeah, PTSD is a real,
For sure.
real thing.
For sure.
This wasn't in our notes, so forgive me for asking it. And it is a really raw question. I guess I'll start with you, Amanda. If you think, until we reach the other side, if you think Layla could say one thing to you, what would she say?
If she could say one thing to me, I think she'd want me to know that she was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she would, there was a moment after she passed. This is why I say that. There was a moment after she passed where she started breathing again and her eyes opened. I had picked her up and she was laying on the bed flat when she passed. I was afraid to move her because I didn't know, she couldn't communicate. So I didn't know, is she in pain? Is she hurting anywhere? Like, I didn't want to move her. I didn't want to touch her. And then when she passed, for some odd reason, I looked at the hospice nurse. I was like, "Can I pick her up?" Why would you ask that question
Of your baby?
Of your baby who's not here anymore?
Yeah.
Like, she's lifeless. So that was an odd question. So I'm not real sure why I asked that. She was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I picked her up, I put her in my lap, and I was hugging her to me, and I was crying. I mean, like, sobbing. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where your whole body is just heaving.
You literally don't feel like you can stop.
Yes, it was a deep, heaving, ugly mess. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of that, she started breathing again. Her eyes opened up. Mm-hmm. And she struggled in that for a few minutes. And the nurse said, "I think she wants to know that you're going to be okay." And I whispered at her in her ear. I was like, "It's okay, baby. I'll be sad, but I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to be okay." And that's when she let go again. I think my aunt, her name's Jonna, Aunt Jonna, she said, "I think in that moment, I think the Lord gave her a choice. She could come back or she could stay. And she chose to stay. But she needed to have your permission." And I was like, well, so that's why I say I think she would say, "I'm okay. It's going to be okay. You're okay. I'm okay, Mom. You know, I'm happy." She would want me to be okay.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Her twins the same way. She would, for a year after Layla passed, if someone brought Layla's name up, she would look at me in the face, afraid that I was going to start crying. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't cry, she would just turn around and kind of take a sigh of relief. She was protecting me. And I think I put her in counseling for that reason, because I was afraid that she wouldn't grieve because she was afraid to upset me. She was protecting me. Both of them were fierce protectors and fierce lovers. And I think that's what she would say.
And Morgan, I don't know if you want to.
Gosh,
would it be
so
your mom
hard.
or your sister? Or?
The first person I'm thinking is my mom. Is when she was alive. I mean, since I was a little girl, anything would happen, I'd be upset about being left out of something or not making a team or just anything like that. And my mom would always just tell me, "You're enough. You're enough." And that got me through so much stuff. So I would like to think that she would just tell me that anything I'm doing or who I am is enough. But I also think she'd be like, "You got this. Like, keep pushing."
Yeah.
She would. One thing I really want to talk about is how hard it is to see this lively person that you've experienced so much good times and laughs with, that they become so sick where they can't function at all. Seeing both of them in like a kind of a comatose state is just something I will never unsee. Especially my mom. My mom's passing was not as peaceful as my sister's. I was with her and I was the one, giving her the morphine, and the hospice nurse would come by like 1 hour a day. And I had family there, but at night it was just my mom and I laying in bed, and I would wake up and she couldn't communicate anything. So I didn't know if she was in pain. I didn't know. That was so hard. Oh, that was so hard. Just this, my mom was such a vocal, loud woman. And so to her to be laying there and not be able to say anything, that was so really hard. But we say that all the kids grieve differently, and if we're doing the right thing or not. I think my daughter kind of kept a lot of her feelings in, and we were so, after my sister passed away, and we were so focused on Jackson, my sister's son, for obvious reasons. Well, my daughter was with my sister all day long at school. And then sometimes she would go with my sister to pick Jackson up from school. She would stay there until I got off of work. We would, a lot of the time, eat together and then go home and do it all over again. So I had to really focus on Brighton, and I still have guilt from that and wonder if that is still, I don't know, if that's still something she deals, I know she deals with it, but just like, did I do enough for her, you know? So that's just really hard.
Can we talk about guilt for a second?
Yeah.
Because I feel like people that are out there that are grieving, they all go through that thought. Did I do enough?
Yep.
For me and Layla, it was much the same way. I even, when I had to tell her goodbye, I told her, I'm so sorry if I was not the mom I needed to be through this.
Wow.
Because when your child literally can't swallow.
Oh, that was the worst. Yeah.
And they're begging for water, but you know they'll aspirate on it and you can't give them water. You talk about guilt. When she passed away, that's something I still struggle with.
Same. Me too.
There is nothing worse
nothing
than telling your child they can't have a drink of water.
You feel completely helpless.
Yes, because you know it's worse for them to have it than to not to.
Yes.
But, you know, at 6 years old, did she understand? I don't know. And sometimes she would just push, and because she couldn't speak, but she would kind of hit my arm with her hand, and she'd just be like, and I knew what she was wanting, and I couldn't give it to her. And I'm sorry. And then there were times that I would just have to fake being asleep.
Oh, it's so hard.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
and I felt like such a horrible mom because I'm like, I can't get her to stop asking for water, and I can't keep telling her no. So I'm just going to lay here and pretend like I'm asleep. That is the worst feeling in the entire world.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing. Whenever you feel helpless, like there's really nothing you can do besides be there. It's, yeah.
Yeah. But I think guilt's a legitimate feeling when you lose someone in that way. But I also believe you do the best you can in the moment you're in. And you have to be okay with that. You have to give yourself a little grace, because I feel like my daughter would have, I know she would have. I know she would have been like, Mom, it's okay, I understand. Especially now looking back, you know, if she could talk to me today, no, you did what you thought you had to do. You did what you could. And, you know, and so we have to remember that, like we did what we could.
Yeah.
We did all that we could. There's just some things that are, like you said, out of our control. And my son, I talked about this on Saturday a little bit too. He deals with guilt still. Mason's 9. He was 4 when it all happened. And the other night he was laying in bed and he just randomly starts crying and holding his little deer that he had. And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, the teacher today mentioned Houston. I was like, oh. And he's like, and it made me think about Layla. And then he just started crying. I was like, buddy, what's wrong? And he said, I was a terrible brother. I said, no, you weren't. You were a wonderful brother. She loved you very much. He said, no, I wasn't, Mom. I didn't even care. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the whole time she was laying in there, I knew she was sick and I knew she was in pain. And I just went outside and kept playing. I said, buddy, you were 4. You didn't understand. He's like, oh, I understood. I was like, you might have known she was dying, but I don't think at 4 you understand the concept of death and how permanent it is. I said, you're going to have to let go of that, buddy. And he could not let it go.
Bless his heart.
He couldn't let it go. And so I finally just said, because I kept telling him, you didn't know, you didn't understand, you didn't know. And he just kept crying and saying, yes, I did. I'm horrible. I'm a bad brother, blah, blah, blah. And I finally just said, well, buddy, if that's how you really feel in your heart, then you need to tell God. I said, do you want me to pray with you? And he nodded his head. And I said, okay, but when we pray, just ask the Lord, tell him how you feel, the guilt you're feeling. Ask him for forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive. And I think the Lord knows that, but if you need it, in your mind, you need that forgiveness from somebody, and it's not, you're not taking it from me. Mm-hmm. And so I said, are you ready? And so we prayed, and I said, did you ask him for forgiveness? And he said, yes. I said, well, now you got to forgive yourself. And I said, can you do that? Can you let it go? Can you forgive yourself? And he nodded his little head, and then he went to sleep, and it was like he hasn't mentioned it since, but just forgiving yourself. And that was an important step for him. Mm-hmm. And if there's someone out there right now that's dealing with guilt like we are, and like my son did, just forgive yourself and let it go. You did the best you could.
It's hard to believe we're at the end of the show. We probably could sit here for a couple more hours and talk about, but I do want to ask this, and I don't care who starts. How do you remember them, celebrate them? What do you do?
I just love talking about them. We talked about on Saturday that we feel like some people don't like to bring up their names or think it might upset us more. That is total opposite for me. I absolutely love when someone asks me about them or just tells me a funny story that happened. Another thing, I teach health science in my class, and so most of my students want to be in the healthcare field. So I use my story with them to talk about how important it is to have compassion, empathy for others, not just now, but whenever they are in the healthcare field. Because there was one nurse, my sister's nurse, the day that she passed away, her name was Victoria, and she sat down with me and she said, tell me what Megan was like before she was sick. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. Like, no one had ever stopped and asked that. It was just about her diagnosis or her treatment, or, she was just a patient. Sometimes I didn't feel like she was a person. Yes, we did have a lot of amazing doctors there, but just her saying that to me was, so I tell my students once they are in that healthcare field to remember that, how much of a difference they can make in their patients, and, be there for them and not just treat them like a patient, but like a person. So.
Isn't that cool? I know that when our mom was, several days before she passed away, I said, the Lord just sent angels, and they were all wearing scrubs.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Yeah.
We had some good ones too.
Yeah.
And how do you guys celebrate or remember Layla? And
the same. I don't want anyone to feel like they're going to hurt me or cause me pain by mentioning her name. And I think a lot of people think that way. And you know what? I'm like you. I like to talk about her. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I tear up, that's okay. Yeah. You didn't make me cry. I just am remembering my daughter today. And so if people could be okay with that concept of, and you don't have to feel like if you do mention her and I do tear up, that you've got to like comfort me. If that makes you uncomfortable, I don't care. I just want to talk about her sometimes. Mm-hmm. But then also there'll be little things like for my kids, her favorite color at that time was purple and turquoise. And so my son now has adopted that as his favorite color. And so what we do is we'll do little things that we'll incorporate in. Like I just bought them stuff to make mums and garters for homecoming. And each year I put a strand of purple in it. And so that's for them to remember her by, that she's kind of there too, in a way. And so there's that. And then every time we see a butterfly, my youngest one, Rhett, who got, hey, Layla. And I was like, well, okay, buddy. We don't believe in reincarnation, but every time we see a butterfly, we can think of Layla. That's not Layla, but we can think of her when we see a butterfly, and then that's one way we do with him. And then we keep pictures. And when it was nap time, when my mom used to keep him, she would take him. There's a wall in her house with just pictures. And she would take him to go tell Layla goodnight, and he'd kiss her little picture, and he'd go to sleep, and he still talks about her, even though he never met her. He talks about her a lot.
That's cool.
So
I love that.
One thing we talked about the other day that I want to make sure is what other people can do for you in this time. Like I said, still bringing them up, still sharing stories, but also just a quick text, like, I'm thinking about you. Like, even, like I said, when everyone else, their lives go back to normal and you're just frozen in time, like, just a little text saying, I'm there for you. I had one of the principals at Joshua, she just put a whole bunch of groceries on our front porch and walked away. And if not for our Ring camera, we wouldn't even known who did that. And so that was huge. And then same person, she also sent me a blanket with all the pictures of my mom and my sister on them. And I sleep with it every single night. Just little things like that. And then we had another friend who brought a basket of Kleenexes, water bottles, gum, mints, and just quietly set it behind us at the visitation. And that was just like, how thoughtful of you, because you're talking to all these people and like, I didn't think to bring a water or like, and just little things like that. I mean, you don't have to go all out for them, just telling them every now and then. It doesn't matter if it's just been a week or, a month or years, like just still bringing up like, hey, I'm still thinking about you, or talking about a funny story. I love it.
real quick, because I know you got to end it.
No, you're good.
One thing I want to tag on to that thought is patience. Give us patience. It's 6 years past, and it still feels like it's yesterday for me sometimes. Yes. And I still go through all the stages of grief, just at different times, different intervals. It's just strange. Like, I'll still get angry, or I'll get short-tempered, or I'll say something, just be patient with us, because we're still going through it. And there's no timeline. There is no end for grief. Yeah. Like, it doesn't end. It keeps going. You just learn how to deal with it as you go. And so just be patient with us. If we act out of line, or we say something out of line, or we react in a way you didn't expect, or we don't react in a way you did expect us, or we didn't do something you thought we should do, or we didn't show up somewhere where you really wanted us to be, it's usually grief related.
Yes.
Please be patient.
Yes. Yeah. I secluded myself a lot after my sister passed away. I've been better this time around, but after my sister passed away, like I said, I went in a dark place, and I still feel guilty. I didn't show up for a lot of people then. I kind of closed a lot of people out. So, yes, a lot of them understood, but some did not. So, yeah, be patient with us is very big.
Well,
good
definitely
advice.
Grief is like, you're okay, and then you're not. And there's no reason for it. So did you guys have anything else you wanted to share? Or I know Morgan's looking at her notes over there.
I want to share this that I sent you today, just a little bit of it. Just a moment.
It was good, but that's up to you.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's if you just simply Google old man who had a is it Reddit?
Yeah.
Read it, Reddit post about grief. And
this is good.
Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but just one person, they just posted, my friend just died. I don't know what to do. And this, I just imagine him the most precious little old man ever, but he pretty much talks about in his long life that he's had numerous people pass away. And then he says, I wish I could say you get used to people dying. I never did. I don't want to. It tears a hole through me whenever somebody I love dies, no matter the circumstances. But I don't want it to not matter. I don't want it to be something that just passes. My scars are a testament to my love and the relationship that I had for and with that person. And then it just goes on to talking about how, like she was saying, there's no time period about death, but that it says, as for grief, you'll find it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning. with wreckage all around you. Everything floating around you reminds you of the beauty and the magnificence of the ship that was and is no more. And all you can do is float. You find some piece of the wreckage and you hang on for a while. Maybe it's some physical thing, like a photograph memory. And then it just goes to say that those waves just come and go, but in longer periods of time. So if you just Google that and read it, I think every single person that goes through grief or loses someone they love should read it. It's just so remarkable.
Well, if you'll send me the link, I'll share that in our show notes so people can go in and look at that. So Amanda's going to pray with us just in a second, but thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So
I feel like I'd known them and I didn't, but Layla sounds like a wonderful little girl. And then your mom and your grandfather and your sister, and then all those little babies. I think they're all still in your and Corey's future. So just in the hands of Jesus. So.
And if you would have met my mom in 5 minutes, she would have known your entire life story. I promise you.
I love people like that.
I promise you. We couldn't go anywhere. Like if we were on a plane or any, she's like, oh, that man I sat by, he just and told us everything. And my sister and I were like, oh, Mom.
The generation thing. My nanny was a saying.
Well, they loved people. It sounds like they wanted to hear their stories. So lead us in prayer, Amanda. And I always ask our guests if they don't mind leading in, and Amanda agreed to. And maybe there's somebody out there that's just buried in grief. Can you just lead us in prayer before we close out?
Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity to sit down to talk about your goodness and the way you show up for people in their grief. Sometimes, Lord, you show up in a tangible way through people, but Lord, sometimes you show up in a spiritual way we can feel your presence, Lord. We just thank you for that. We thank you that in our darkest moments, you never leave us. Your word says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. It also says you are always close to the brokenhearted. And Lord, when people are going through the darkest times of their lives, that's something we can all be grateful for. We can never be mad at, Lord. And we thank you for your comfort, for your presence here today. Lord, those that are listening are obviously going through some sort of grief in their life, or they're trying to figure out how to help someone who is grieving. Lord, I just pray that something that was said today would resonate within them. I pray, Lord, that they would go to your word, that they would search through your word, that they would seek out your face, and that they would find comfort in you today. Lord, we just thank you. We love you. We give you all the praise and the glory, God. We know that at the end of our race, there's a great cloud of witnesses waiting to receive us up in heaven, and we thank you for that too. We thank you that you created us, that you created this world so that we could have the opportunity and the hope to join with you in heaven someday, to see all of our loved ones again, and to see your face and forever worship you. We give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen. Do you guys mind if we tag you all in the show notes on how to follow you on Facebook or Instagram or something like that? So if you want to get a hold of either Amanda or Morgan, we'll tag those in the show notes. And so go follow them. They both have beautiful families that are enjoying life and remembering those that have already gone to be with Jesus. Thank you for your stories.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I think it's been a blessing, and I just really feel like somebody out there that doesn't have anybody to talk to has come across this program and has received some hope and healing through your stories. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I warned you at the beginning of this show that it was going to be a good one. So share it, send it to somebody that you know it will help, and they'll need to hear it. And we'll be back with you for the next episode. In the meantime, take back your joy. There is a God, and he loves you, and he's got a purpose for your life, and it's meant to be in joy. So on behalf of Amanda and Morgan and our producer, Taylor over there, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We'll see you next time.